Welcome to the official Tune.raider studio walkthrough video. I'm kind of excited because this is the first actual requested video that I've ever done on the page, so I hope that y'all like it, and thanks for dropping a comment on what kind of thing you want to see. So to start it off, I do most things in Logic Pro. I have a M1 Mac Mini. M1 pupper for that it's killer. The only time that it's really ever slowed down for me is when I'm running timing on stuff, if you're doing drumming things and you have to beat correct and all that kind of things. That's the only time that I've ever even had anything slow down on it. So it does really well. M1 chip's cool. I know people have the M2 and it's even better, but M1 is good enough for me. I don't do a ton of video things besides this. M1 chip's sick. I'm upgraded to Monterey so I can do the background, which is sick. I love having the custom anime background thing that I made. It's pretty sick. But that's just extra. As far as audio interface goes, I do have a Apollo 8 Pre, 4 XLR ins, a bunch of 1/4-inch ins as well, and it is one of the older ones with a double quad core. It's more expensive than Focusrite stuff, but for me to take the time and save up a little bit more for it, and I still got a good deal on reverb.com for it, and to me it was just worth it for the better preamps. I do a little bit of singing here and there, and I just wanted to have a little bit better quality of a thing, so I'm really happy with it. And I would encourage anybody else, if you have the patience to be able to hold it out and you have the time that you can hold out and save up a little bit more for something a little nicer, definitely go for a UA. The Apollo series is just killer in my experience with it. Some extra hardware stuff that we got going on: the tape deck and the record player. The Audio-Technica, it's just an LP60, so it's not their high-end one, but the needle on it's pretty decent in my experience. It serves me well. The only thing that you have to worry about is grounding issues that I've run into. So if you don't have proper grounding in your power, you can get a lot of extra noise from this pupper, which kind of sucks. But I enjoy sampling vinyl and tape a lot of times, so having these two set up all the time into my interface is honestly sick. It saves time with the hardware plugging in and unplugging things all the time, and it just makes it more reasonable to use in the workflow. I don't know if some of y'all feel the same way, but for me, if I had to go in and re-plug in all the stuff that it takes for this to work every time that I wanted to do something with it, I wouldn't use it half the time that I do currently. So just to get into a little bit more specifics on the tape deck, it's got 2 sides, so I can sample into my DAW and record to a different tape deck at the same time, which has been cool in a couple of different scenarios. So you can get the raw tone of a sample straight into the Apollo, as well as run it over to a different tape deck to be able to do different tape effects. And if you do the whole warbles and stuff like that, you can mess with that as well. So that's kind of nice. I've been rocking with the Kali Audio LP6s for a minute now. They have a good range production to them. They have some nice customizability to them, just to keep them super functional. And the front-facing subport's kind of nice too. In my previous spaces, I've always had my desk right up against a wall, which kind of sucks to have for, just different resonances and stuff like that. And so to be able to have a little bit of flexibility with these, obviously acoustics aren't the greatest in any of my settings that I've ever had, so to have any sort of flexibility provided by the speaker is huge. These have been tight for that, and I'm honestly kind of grateful for that. Talking about guitars, I guess. I got a decent guitar setup. Nothing super bougie and expensive, obviously. It's just Squier, but the Strat's my go-to for sure. I got it a while ago when I was doing more pop punk and alternative stuff, and it has served me well. It doesn't sound obviously as nice as something more expensive, but I got so much use out of it, and I've focused a lot on different effects and things. We can go to the pedalboard next, I guess. But guitar has definitely always been an easy go-to for me in songs, and You know, it's kind of something that I haven't leaned into all the time, but it's definitely an easy go-to. Gotta nerd out about the pedalboard real quick with y'all, just to show it off. So I'm more of a fan of holding on to gear than getting rid of it. So this isn't every pedal that I have, obviously, but just what's on the board right now. Obviously starting out with the tuner, into an SP compressor. This pupper's juicy and it can squash it in the best way. The Booster Grande, just for a little bit extra beef to the signal after that, which this is becoming less relevant now that I've got that, but I just keep it there to kick in overdrive every once in a while. I think the Voyager's after that one. Killer overdrive tone, that pupper's solid. And then on to the Charlie. Charlie Brown's the best, and also Marshall amps are sick, so I had to get this one. It's not the Angry Charlie, which a lot of people have, which is a little bit more distortion, but it still has a lot of kick to it. And I'm more of a fan of layering on distortion anyways, so to have the one with a little bit less, and then to be able to kick into it with this, or with this, is always my go-to. And then onto the Plainsman, which does almost the same thing as this, but because it's after those two in the signal, the way that it kicks in the distortion of them is sick, and I think it makes a little bit of a difference to be able to kick in before or after if I feel like it. Also, purple LED is sick. I think my regular clean tone is usually just with this on now too. And then on to the bass chorus, which at some point I want to trade this one out for a Chase Bliss warped vinyl, because those ones are tight and chorus effects are sick, but this one actually sounds super interesting and it's kind of fun to run a bass pedal on for guitar. And then we got the ARP 87, which is just immaculate sounds. I have it all the way up on the effect of it, and it's usually sitting on the lo-fi setting, but I mess with the slapback too sometimes. This is a sick delay pedal, and everything about it is my favorite thing. And then out from there into the DD20, which is another delay pedal, and I love stacking delays just because like it's always been my favorite thing to run like a quarter note that's like super regular sounding on this one, and then a like dotted eighth that's super modulated and lo-fi sounding from this pupper, or vice versa with the quarter note here and the dotted eighth. I just love layering different delays. It's fun to do that. Then up to the Fathom, which my buddy Jaron sent to me, and I had a TC Electronics before this, which was super nice because you can flip through things all the time, but I would never fully customize it to the extent that I wanted to, and to be able to have the knobs here to really just mess with the tone. You have so much versatility, and being able to do that is always more fun for me than pulling up software. So, and then the Terra Echo, which is super goofy sounding but super underrated. This pupper has some wild tones, and it's delay, reverb, modulation all in one, and it's sick sounding. If you've never heard any of these, I'll put a link up here to a sick demo that made me want to get that pedal. Sorry to the non-guitar people about that. I didn't want to drag it on for too long, but I love talking about guitar pedal effects and stuff. It's just fun. So let's talk about maybe some mics now. This Elroy is definitely my go-to for lead vocals and stuff. It's a tube mic, serial number 321 for anybody that cares. It's kind of rare, but not like in a super like expensive way, and just like they didn't make very many kind of a way. It's got flippable polar patterns. I never switch it. I haven't really done much, and I don't have like the room to be able to do super flexible things with it, but figure eight's always cool if you're messing around with things. RE320, I use this all the time for like, you know, any voiceover stuff or podcast stuff that you have to do. It's just practical to have around. I don't use it too much for like music stuff. Besides, I've used it for a kick mic. Actually, I think I used it for a snare mic one time. You can do vocals with it, and it's honestly not too bad for me, but like the tube mic is killer already, and I'll just go do that before I go to this for that kind of thing anyways. This is always going to sound decent with anything. I'm gonna pull out the box here too, the rest of the stuff. The Electro Voice RE16, which is actually a distant cousin of the 320, which is kind of funny to think about, but this is a vintage one. I use this thing for like any lo-fi background vocal things, just because obviously it's a vintage mic. It doesn't have the full range in the same way. It's got interesting character to it. If you have something that you're gonna toss a bunch of effects on anyways, to add a little character off the bat is kind of fun, you know. This pupper. This was the first mic I ever got. Bought it from my buddy that worked at a Sam Ash. It doesn't sound good, but we recorded a lot of things with this. It's honestly not that great of a mic, but a lot of memories to it, you know. I recently blew a tube on my amp, which sucks, but this is my go-to when I was miking an amp. Sennheiser 906. The 609 is sick too. This is just, it gives you the extra switch, you know, which is cool, but it's not like a game changer, honestly. I don't think. If you can get a deal on a 906, that's tight, but if you can find a 609, they work perfectly fine too. I like these because they're just as easy to work with as the 57, and people love the 57 a lot, but I love these a lot too, and I'm never gonna hate on a 57, but I'm also never gonna stop using one of these. So I think that's about everything of value in my mic closet, besides other random stuff and stuff I'd like never actually will use. Maybe I can pull out some samplers next. Man, this is just making me realize how dusty everything is. I need to clean everything a little better. Starting with the oldest, the SP202. I got a crazy deal on this thing from reverb.com, and I probably would not have bought it if it wasn't a good deal, just because it doesn't have any sort of sequencer on its own. You can't resample in it. It's kind of hard to work with unless you get a memory card, which I don't have a memory card. The storage that it has locally is not very much. You can't even record a full 2-minute song into this in stereo without it like cutting off halfway, which kind of sucks, but the sounds that this thing has are so unique that like when you do see a deal on it, I would definitely recommend picking it up, you know. It's just a fun thing to have around. You know, if you ever get into like a creative block or whatever type of thing, it's always cool to have something like this to pull out of nowhere and be like, it's a good switch up from the regular workflow, you know, type of thing. 202 is a GOAT. 404 OG. The skin that I have on it makes it look a lot like an SX just because of the color of it and the color of the type, but it's an OG. I just put a thing over it because I didn't love the silver. The silver looks sick too, but this looks better in my opinion. As a quick shout out to the coffee companies that I have on here. Tala Coffee Roasters over in Chicago area, Week Coffee in Nashville, and Onyx down in Arkansas. Goated. Coffee stickers on a 6 sampler, you know, you had to make it look cool, especially, and with the big knobs too. Customizing a 404 is just fun to do, and I'm hyped that I got around to it. This thing's a legend. The only thing that I have not really been able to figure out is the sequencer, and that's just different on the OG than it is on the other ones. The Mark II is incredible for that, and obviously it's different. And I've not messed with doing the MIDI. Maybe I'll mess around with that someday. Obviously the introduction of the DJ effects, vinyl simulator is tight. I do want to get a 303 someday because compression on the 303 is obviously just different and cool. The tone from this one is really good still. I'm gonna try running most of my stuff, all my masters, through this on a couple projects this year, just to get that tone, you know. Something about it makes it more vintage feeling, and you're running it through an actual analog machine, so it just has special character to it, you know. The OG, it's got the tone. MPC Studio, I want to get a standalone someday. It's basically just a MIDI keyboard, USB. I don't have the full software. They recently made the switch over to using only MPC 2 software, so the MPC 1 software they haven't updated it, and it doesn't work with my Mac Mini at all. That's kind of a bummer. One of these days I'll get MPC 2 and maybe mess around with it, but it's still obviously great to have a MIDI keyboard to be able to do drum patterns and stuff with, so it's great for that. I know a lot of dudes are working with the MPC software, and it's really not that bad at all. And a lot of dudes worked in the standalone for years, so obviously it's goated. But for now, it's just a MIDI keyboard. This isn't a sampler, but it's the drum machine. If you haven't checked out the video, check out that video. It sounds kind of goofy. It's a vintage drum machine, you know, what are you gonna do about it? From Mattel Electronics, Synsonic drums. It's another thing, like what I said with the 202, it's not the most practical thing to have in my workflow all the time, but when you just need something, a creative pick-me-up, it's cool to have something like this around that you can just kind of goof around with. Someday I kind of want to make a little sample pack with that thing. It'd be kind of fun, you know. That's all for now, I think. I don't have the biggest space in the world, but I'm thankful for the gear that I do have and to be able to just make music and that kind of thing, you know, honestly, in general. So I'm hyped on the space, and it's set up to be able to cater to just plug and play anything that I need, you know, right now. So I'm definitely grateful for everything and the way it's set up. Thankful for y'all for tuning in, and thank you for commenting and asking me to do a tour walkthrough, because that made my day as well. If y'all want anything else more specific in videos, definitely let me know. Drop a comment. Appreciate y'all for tuning in. Until next time.